Giorgio Cafiero joins us now from Washington. He's the CEO of Gulf State Analytics, a DC-based geopolitical risk consulting firm. Giorgio, good to have you with us. So as we've already mentioned, these talks between Mr. Erdogan and Mr. Putin taking place against the backdrop of the imminent withdrawal of US troops from Northern Syria. Turkey has now asked the US to implement the Manbij roadmap, the removal of YPG fighters from Manbij. What is the US view on that? What are you expecting to see?
This is a very, very sensitive issue. There are a host of state and non-state actors that have had influence in Manbij in recent years, and this question about who is going to control it, how the transfer of power is going to happen, is extremely complex right now and will have major implications for Turkey's security as well as the future of Syria. I think while Russia and Turkey are very keen to cooperate in areas where they have overlapping interests, and they're also keen to try to work through areas where they see issues differently, I think the future of Manbij is going to potentially be a source of tension between Ankara and Moscow. The Russian government, I think, is very straightforward in terms of what it wants, which is for the Syrian regime to take back this city. However, Turkey is not so comfortable with this idea, and it's going to be important to see the extent to which the leaders of Turkey and Russia will be able to sort out this conflict of interest.
You mentioned Russia's concerns about what Turkey wants in northern Syria. Turkey also wanting to establish a security zone there. What are Russians' concerns on that? And do you think the two will be able to come to a position that's closer together following this meeting between Putin and Erdogan?
Well, it seems that the U.S. has given its support to this plan to establish this 32-kilometer buffer zone in northern Syria that will help Turkey fortress itself from the YPG terror threat. Russia it's not so clear how Russia views this plan. I think Russia would not look at it extremely favorably. However, it's going to be important to see the extent to which Moscow and Ankara can sort of negotiate on some issues. I think it's possible for us to imagine Moscow accepting such a plan. But in exchange, I think Turkey would probably need to use some of its influence in Idlib to help Russia address some of its concerns with extremist groups in that northwestern province.
Can I ask, overall, how does the US view this meeting between Turkey and Russia? Because on the face of it, the US and Turkey are NATO allies and have been working together in Syria. Now the US is withdrawing, and Turkey is, necessarily so, working more closely with Russia. What does the US feel about that?
Well, it's tough to know whose opinion we should talk about when we ask what the U.S. Thinks about that. I think many in the D.C. establishment who have criticized Donald Trump very harshly for his announcement of the U.S. withdrawal would say that this growing cooperation between Turkey and Russia undermines Washington's interests, and that this is a result of the U.S. Retreating from northern Syria. I think there are others in D.C. who would especially those who support Trump's decision to pull troops out of northern Syria, would understand that Turkey and Russia have much higher stakes in the future of Syria than the United States does, and it would just be natural for these two capitals, Ankara and Moscow, to work together to deepen cooperation. I think for the Trump administration, the concern is how Iran fits into this picture. Obviously, through the Astana format, Turkey, Russia, and Iran have really established themselves as the main outside influencers in Syria. And I think the Trump administration views the Washington-Ankara rapprochement as an opportunity for the United States to try to place some distance between Turkey and Iran and use the U.S.-Turkish alliance as a means to challenging Iranian influence in the region at a time when the U.S.-Saudi relationship is undergoing a tremendous amount of stress. And of course, the U.S. has seen Saudi Arabia as playing that key role in countering Iran for decades. I have a feeling that Trump right now is trying to bring Turkey more into that role.
Giorgio, good to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed for your